their goal is not statehood at all. Because if they achieve their statehood, then it would be the time to build. And this is the part they don't know how to do. They are not statesmen, they're just revolutionaries. They want basically to create chaos. They only could thrive in chaos. And every time peace was there. I mean, who's preventing you from living peacefully? Israel has been extending its hand, but instead of focusing their effort on building a Palestinian state, they focus their entire effort on destroying the state of Israel. And this is how they got the global recognition.
What was the attitude among Hamas and among the Palestinians to the attempts to reach resolution with Israel? So, for example, the Oslo Accords in '94 and later, the Camp David in '99. How did the Palestinians respond to those attempts?
Look, it's very, very strange how many times the Palestinians had the opportunity to declare their independence. And before they became Palestinians back in 1964, they were still Arabs who actually did not want to identify as Palestinians. They rejected the 1948 partition plan.
Mm-hmm.
And Israel declared their independence when the Arabs had equal opportunity to declare theirs. They remembered some 40 years later, in 1988, when Yasser Arafat declared the Palestinian independence. Then Oslo came to the picture in good faith to try to reconcile the conflict and find middle ground where just both people would live peacefully. But instead of Yasser Arafat working towards actually establishing peace, he funded terror attacks. Marwan Barghouti, one of his closest friends, funded an armed militias. He actually funded Hamas bomb makers at some point under the watch of Yasser Arafat. And Yasser Arafat blessed it. I was part of these meetings, just for your information, so you don't think that I'm making up stories.
No.
I was in those meetings. I wrote their words with my own hand, and which led to the escalation of the Second Intifada. But prior to the Second Intifada, Ehud Barak, the Israeli Prime Minister, offered the Palestinians a Palestinian state on the 1967 borders that included East Jerusalem, that included Temple Mount, the holiest Jewish site, which, like, I still cannot believe that such offer was on the table, and Yasser Arafat rejected it.
Yep.
Yasser Arafat rejected it.
Look, I worked on this hard, and the only time Yasser Arafat didn't tell me the truth was when he promised me he was going to accept the peace deal that we had worked out, which would have given the Palestinians a state on 96% of the West Bank and 4% of Israel, and they got to choose where the 4% of Israel was. So they would have the effect of the same land of all the West Bank. They would have a capital in East Jerusalem. I can hardly talk about this. And they would have equal access all day, every day to the security towers that Israel maintained all through the West Bank up to the Golden Heights. All this was offered, including, I will say it again, a capital in East Jerusalem and 2 of the 4 quadrants of the old city of Jerusalem, confirmed by the Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak and his cabinet. And they said no. And I think part of it is that Hamas did not care about a homeland for the Palestinians. They wanted to kill Israelis and make Israel uninhabitable. Well, I got news for them. They were there first. Before their faith existed, they were there. In the time of King David, and the southernmost tribes had Judea and Samaria.
So then you ask yourself, maybe their goal is not statehood at all. Because if they achieve their statehood, then it would be the time to build. And this is the part they don't know how to do. They are not statesmen. They're just revolutionaries. They want basically to create chaos. They only could thrive in chaos. And every time peace was there. I mean, Who's preventing you from living peacefully? Israel has been extending its hand, but instead of focusing their effort on building a Palestinian state, they focus their entire effort on destroying the state of Israel. And this is how they got the global recognition. And I think the problem with this leadership, and not only the Palestinian Authority, also Hamas and all other Palestinian factions, that their game is not actually local. Is not within the Palestinian territories, let's say the Arab communities within Judea, Samaria, and Gaza. Their game is global. Their game is global, and this is where they get recognition. And the more violence, the more they sacrifice children for political and financial gain, the more the global community rewards them. And I think this is part of the problem. If their intention was to actually build a Palestinian state, they would have had that many years ago.
Is there any elements among the Palestinians with any kind of significant power that is interested in building, that is interested in some kind of peaceful resolution? Or is it all dominated by people like Hamas and the Palestinian Authority?
Look, of course, there are visionary people and people who, of course, want to coexist even with Israel. But they're afraid because the moment they would raise the case that peace is the only solution, many of them were killed. Many of them were labeled as collaborators, fifth column. And over time, over the years, they just vanished. And today, you will not find any of those. And in fact, even those who want to build today, they're still screaming and pointing their fingers at Israel, never pointing their fingers at the Palestinian Authority's strategy that actually gambled with the Palestinian blood, gambled with the future of generation after generation. Same thing with Hamas. They don't dare. Look, October 7 happened. Where are those moderate voices? Maybe they existed some 30, 40 years ago, that people would step forward and say, this does not represent us. This is total barbarism. But today, the vast majority of Palestinians, they don't even dare raise the question and say what happened was wrong, to try to separate themselves and their agendas from Hamas agendas. But what they did the opposite. They aligned themselves with Hamas, and they banked on the global outrage. Instead of clarifying the situation, say this is a group of people who don't represent us. But this is now the moral responsibility. And it doesn't matter, if you don't have moral clarity to differentiate yourself, then what's the point of building? You're building on very wrong foundations. And what is the difference between a hypocrite who actually support terrorism and play double face and the terrorists themselves?